Okay, so now that we've shown how to use trigonometry to find missing sides, let's talk about how we use it to find missing angle measures. So the first thing is that when you hit the button for sine, cosine, and tangent in your calculator, if you look above that, you'll see if you hit second first, you'll see that you have this sine to the -1, cosine to the -1, tangent to the -1. Those are our inverse ratios. That's the button we're going to use when we input to find a missing angle. So finding a missing side, easy. We just type right in sine, cosine, tangent into our calculator. But if we're trying to find the angle, then we have to remember to hit second first, the second button, then sine, cosine, tangent, depending on which inverse ratio you're trying to find. And again, please make sure your calculator is in degree mode. So let's look at this first problem. Again, we're going to solve this the same way. We're going to look at the information we were given, and that's going to help us to kind of determine if we're going to use sine, cosine, or tangent. So our angle that we're trying to find is right here. The information that we were given was an opposite leg and we were given a hypotenuse. And I just put a G instead of a Y. Okay, we're given opposite and hypotenuse, so that is sine. So we're going to write this out as sine of x equals our opposite over our hypotenuse. So here's the big thing that everyone doesn't like, but I promise you, just do it. It's very useful. This is how we show our work for trigonometry. You're first going to write out your ratio like this. Then we're going to write out x is equal to, and you're going to write exactly what you're going to plug into your calculator. So you're going to write this sine, this -1, and then 15 over 24. This is how you show your work. This is important. If you type it into your calculator wrong and you didn't show this step, you will get the whole problem wrong. So please don't skip steps. Write it out. Write out exactly what you're typing in your calculator. Okay. It's also really helpful if you forget to put your calculator in degree mode. At least I can see that you understood how to solve the problem. All right. So then I plug this into my calculator exactly as I've written it, and I get x is 38.7 degrees. That is another important thing to remember. If we are talking about you just found an angle measure, you need to put that degree symbol on your answer or you will get points off. All right, let's look at the next one. Here's our angle that we are trying to find, the information that we have. We have an adjacent side, and we have a hypotenuse, which means we're using cosine. So we set up our problem. Cosine of x is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse. And now we're going to show our work. Into our calculator, we're going to type cosine, the inverse cosine of 8 over 11. We type that in our calculator, and we get x equals 43.3 degrees. All right, our next example, here's our angle. We are given opposite, and there's the hypotenuse. So that means we're going to use sine, and that is the opposite over the hypotenuse. I almost said that wrong. And then to show our work, x equals the inverse sine of 40 over 41. Type that in our calculator, and we get 77.3 degrees. Our last example here, here's our angle. We are given opposite, and we are also given adjacent, which means we're using tangent. And that is just our opposite side over our adjacent side. And then we use inverse tangent of 7 over 5 into our calculator, and we get x is 54.5 degrees. Okay, so let's just do a review. So now let's just say you're not told whether or not it's a missing angle or a missing side, and we just want to use sine, cosine, tangent to find whatever is missing. All right, so let's look at our first example. we're going to take our information. We see we are given an angle, and we're given a side opposite that angle, and we're given the side adjacent to that angle, which means we're going to use tangent. So tangent of 51 degrees is equal to opposite over adjacent. And now we solve for x. So x is equal to 8 over the tangent of 51. We plug that into our calculator, and we'll get x equals 6.5. The next example, now we're trying to find an angle, which means, remember, we're going to use that inverse button. So we're given the adjacent side to that angle, and we're given the hypotenuse, which means we're going to use cosine. So cosine of x is equal to the adjacent over the hypotenuse. And then to solve that, we're going to use inverse cosine of 31 over 36. Type that into our calculator, and we get x equals 30.6 degrees. All right, let's look at the next one. Here's our angle. We are given the adjacent side and the hypotenuse, which means we're going to use cosine. So cosine of 46 degrees is equal to our adjacent side over our hypotenuse. To solve for x, we multiply both sides by 28. And then we plug this into our calculator, and so we'll get x is equal to 19.5. All right, the last one, here's our angle. We are given the side opposite, and we're given the side adjacent, which means we're going to use tangent. So tangent of x is equal to the opposite side over the adjacent side. And then to solve, we use the inverse tangent button, 25 over 78. Plug that in our calculator, and we get x equals 17.8 degrees. Okay, I'm going to have you do these last two on your own. I'm going to give you the answers here. So this one you should get x equals 12.6, and this one you should get x equals 31.8 degrees. So try those on your own. And let me know if you have any issues or problems with it. But try them on your own and check your answers. See if you get it. Let's do the hard one now. All right, so here we have a combination of two. So what we're going to do first is to decide where we're going to start. Look at the triangle that gives you the most information. On this little triangle down here, we only have 19 degrees. That's all we have, which means we're first going to try to solve this larger triangle because we have two pieces of information. And we're going to find this side that they both share, because then that means on the little triangle, we'll have two pieces of information. We want to find DE. So I called that X. Let's call DE Y. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is find X. So you'll see here's our angle. X is opposite that angle, and we're also given the side adjacent to that, which means we're going to use tangent. So tangent of 61 degrees is equal to the side opposite over the side adjacent. So that means that side is 24 times tangent of 61. We put that in our calculator, and we're going to get x is equal to 43.3. So that means this side right here is 43.3. So now let's find DE. We have two pieces of information that will allow us to find that y. So you'll see that y is opposite our angle of 19 degrees, and 43.3 is adjacent to it, which means we're going to use tangent again. So tangent of 19 degrees is equal to the side opposite, which is, in our case, y, over the side adjacent, which is 43.3. So when we solve for y, we get 43.3 times tangent of 19 is equal to that side DE. We plug that in our calculator. Let's go ahead and write DE equals 14.9. Now let's do an application. We do a lot of ladders with applications for trigonometry because they lean up against walls and they make right triangles. So the biggest thing you need to do here is draw a picture. You can draw a picture with we have cats and dogs and things like that, or you can just draw a triangle, what it's talking about. So let's say we have a ladder leaning against a wall. Here's a wall, here's the ladder, and here's the ground. This is like the most basic of pictures that you can do, and it works. All right, so if it makes an angle of 75 degrees with the ground, that means our angle is right here, 75 degrees. If the foot of the ladder is 6 feet from the base of the wall, if this is our wall, then that means that this would be 6 feet. And then we want to know what is the length of the ladder. So we want to know how long is this ladder that's leaning up against our wall. So that's our information we're provided with. Let's see what we're going to use to solve it. So you can see we were given the side that's adjacent to our angle, and we were given the hypotenuse, which means we're going to use cosine. So cosine of 75 degrees is equal to the adjacent over the hypotenuse. And now we can solve. X is 6 over cosine of 75 degrees. We plug that into our calculator, and we get that ladder is 23.2 feet. And yes, you must include your unit of measurement.